my pleasure to introduce Paul Ortiz, who is going to introduce our speaker. Paul is the station manager of TV6. All I can say, Betty and I think of Paul as one of our sons. He's been here for 33 years, and when we moved here, Paul had just taken over, and wow, it has been a long time. Paul, without Paul's help, this would not have taken place, believe me.
Thank you, Bob. Well, on behalf of the Historical Society and all of us in Laguna Woods Village, I want to thank you for joining us today for our recognition of Rob Merritt and 50 years of broadcasting in Laguna Woods Village. You know, I've had the privilege to have worked with every one of them here, and they've all been in our community for nearly 40 years, so I'm very proud to say that. With us today, we have over 100 years of broadcast and media experience in Laguna Woods Village.
Oh my God, are we really old?
If you can believe that. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Carolyn Wood. She's over here to our far right. Carolyn Wood actually is very involved with the Laguna Canyon Foundation, but she actually started working over at Channel 6 in the early 1970s and then retired in the late 1980s. Carolyn Wood was a coordinator at Channel 6 and helped us a lot with our technical aspects of our station, and actually had the Apple IIe and was one of the first message boards that we had in our community. So it was, that tells you how long ago we went. George Phelps worked for Cablecasters. In September of 1969, he started in Laguna Woods Village. He actually was our program director at the time too, or program manager, putting all our programs together. For those of you that don't know, he was also our bingo host. We used to have a live bingo show, and we'd give away prizes like the wonderful food that Yolanda has offered us today, and then give them out to our community. And for half an hour, we'd call out bingo numbers, and George was our program manager as well. George worked with us until 2003, so he worked in Laguna Woods Village from 1969 until 2003. And then, of course, you know Myra Neben. Myra Neben was the editor of the then Leisure World News, and this started in 1977, and then she retired, I believe, in what, 2005?
The end of 2005.
In 2005, when it became the Laguna Woods Globe, and she was their editor for many years, so you know Myra Neben. And of course, our guest of the evening or the afternoon is Rob Merritt. Rob Merritt began in June of 1969 with Cablecasters as well. A lot of you probably don't even know who Cablecasters are, but they were actually the company that was running the studio at that time. And then he went to the recreation department for a couple of weeks, I believe. And then Rossmore Electric actually took over the contract and worked for many years with Rossmore Electric until he finally retired just a month ago with Professional Community Management as our cable news supervisor. So I'm going to let the program go to Rob Merritt, and he's going to be your moderator and our guest speaker, and look forward to a wonderful program. But Myra wants to throw a curveball, so we're going to let her do that as well.
We're going to start with a little different. I'm sure some of you have seen the James Lipton program Inside the Actors Studio with assorted wonderful questions. Well, today we're going to be inside the Channel 6 studio with Rob Merritt, and an icon of the Leisure World, Laguna Woods television scene, who's finally retiring, what, after 44 years you retired?
More or less.
44 years. Rob was a mere child when he came to Channel 6, just out of college, anxious to make his name as a television news anchor. When he retired, Rob was probably the best known personality in the history of the community. So let's start with the obvious, Rob. Where were you born?
So long ago, I forgot. San Gabriel, California.
What was your father's name?
Bruce.
And what was your mother's name?
Bertha.
Where did you attend school? College, primarily.
Well, college, Cal State Fullerton.
What was your ambition as a college student?
To not get drafted. Was number one goal. Had about 3 different majors. Ended up with radio, TV, film.
Where did you hear about what was then Leisure World?
Part of the requirements at Channel for internship at Cal State Fullerton, or was an internship to do a mass media someplace. So I said, oh, there's that little TV station down there in Leisure World. Go work with the folks down there.
When you started work there, did you think this would be your career for
No.
44 years?
No. I was always waiting for Rune Arledge to call me from Wide World of Sports. Never called.
What was your first impression of the Channel 6 studio?
Well, since we had no studio at Cal State Fullerton, it was something as opposed to nothing. Black and white, 2 cameras, and some rather interesting people that were working in there at the time.
Well, we've already met some of your early co-workers, Carolyn and George.
Right.
Were they both there when you started?
Neither of them were there. George and I went to school together. We were actually in some of the same classes at Cal State Fullerton. And George did his internship, I want to say, at Santa Ana Instructional Television, Anaheim ITV, one of those, yeah. The school districts in Orange County had a lot of money back in those days, and so they had in-house production companies that would do educational programming. So I think that's where George learned how to do, not bingo, but everything else. He learned bingo on the job.
Who were some of the famous people you've interviewed?
Well, let's see. I was trying to think about that yesterday because I was thinking of congressmen. And of course, Congressman Campbell, our current congressman, has been on several times. Christopher Cox was on quite a few times. The nefarious Andrew Hinshaw, I think we had him on a few times. He was our assessor in Orange County and became congressman. And he didn't see anything wrong with selling the taxation computer program that he'd been paid to design for Orange County. He saw nothing wrong with selling that to other people back in Virginia and other places. So he got a nice orange jumpsuit. Spent some time at the music facility up the street from us here. Before that was let's see, Bob Badham.
B1 Madam?
And B1 Badham. No. Was and then we had Schmitz, John Schmitz.
John Schmitz.
And I think Utt was our first congressman, and we may have had him on once or twice, George,
Yes.
when he was
Yes.
ending his tour of duty as a congressman. We had Senator Hayakawa on. We've had Dianne Feinstein on. Let's see, George, you interviewed Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford and Francis Gary Powers. We've had Andy Hinshaw before he went to jail. Nguyen Cao Ki.
Yeah.
We had a chance to go
You all
down.
remember when all the folks from Vietnam, when the North Vietnamese took over, a lot of people left South Vietnam, and the people that had enough money came to California and were put in tents at the Camp Pendleton Marine Base. So George got to go down there with Congressman Hinshaw and one of his assistants, and former Air Marshal and then former Vice President Key, who just passed away a couple of years ago, actually had a very successful business career here in Orange County in the Little Saigon area. But he had electric blanket, as I recall, so he had electricity running from somewhere to his bed, a big bottle of Chivas underneath the bed, and probably an AK-47 and some gold bars. We didn't look, but he was happy to be anywhere but South Vietnam at that time, I think.
There's an interesting story as an aside in that particular interview. Congressman Hinshaw was instrumental in getting me to fly down to Camp Pendleton. We left from El Toro. They took a helicopter down to the village where they were going to be housing 10,000 Vietnamese and Cambodian refugees. And we were led around. A lot of material was given to us as far as the logistical problems that were being faced by the Marines at that time. And then we were led into an office where it was just the congressman, myself, and the general and his staff. And once the door closed, the general let out his hair and really opened up on Congressman Hinshaw, saying, "What were these people in Washington thinking? I'm sitting down to dinner with my wife when I get a call from Washington saying, in 2 weeks you've got to be prepared to put up 10,000 refugees from Vietnam and Cambodia. You're going to have to feed them. You're going to have to make sure they have medical attention. You're going to have to make sure they're clothed and they have some form of housing," which was tents at the time. And he said, "And by the way, don't interrupt your training schedule for the Marines." Well, and then he laced that with some few choice phrases along the lines. And then he looks over at me and he goes, "Who are you?" And Congressman Hinshaw says, "Oh, this is George Phelps from Channel 6." And the man turned white. He said, "Everything I've said in this room, especially about the personalities in Washington, D.C., is off the record."
Yeah. You know, we were also, and I think all of us were here when Gerald Ford came back to the community as president. And in fact, that was right across the street at Clubhouse 2.
That's right.
And as I recall, it was a security nightmare. And a reporter from a competing media publication from Laguna Beach was an older gentleman. So he tried to sneak in. They had a press area and a resident area. And he tried to sneak into the resident area. And I remember the Secret Service came this close to calling the sheriff and having him taken away because he was where he wasn't supposed to be. But that was interesting to see that. And I guess the guys over at Station 22 got to watch the presidential limousine. And they were opening up the little compartments and seeing the sawed-off shotguns and the machine guns. And they're going, "Oh, close those," you know, all that. But that was interesting to have an actual presidential visit. Ronald Reagan was here at Clubhouse, I want to say Clubhouse 3. Dan Boone was the president of the Republican Club at the time, interviewed him. But I understand, and I wasn't here in 66, 67, I was still in college. But the first on-air Channel 6 person was a guy named Harry Babbitt. Those of you with knowledge of the big band era, he was the one of the singers on the College of Musical Knowledge, and he bought the rights to that show when they ended that show. So he actually worked for Cortese in public relations, and the first Channel 6 studio was actually the Clubhouse 1 main lounge. In fact, I think we used to see cables hanging down from the ceiling over there that were the remnants of that. But he interviewed a guy who was just finishing his acting career named Ronald Reagan, and he predicted that he might get into politics and could even become president someday. So that was actually one of the first Channel 6 interviews. The studio was actually here when we arrived, though. It started about 66, 67.
In the administration building?
It was in the administration building. We were in what was the, if you know where the bocce courts are now, that end of the building was where we were. That's, of course, now the much beloved San Sebastian project. But we were in the room, that used to be where people would pick out their carpet and their drapes, I think, for Homes and Leisure World. So it was back in the day. And I recall when we started, we had 2 black and white cameras, and then they had rented a 3rd black and white camera. And Carolyn, when did we go color? Was it 71 was our first color test?
Yes, after they gave us a contract for the go color.
Yeah, so we borrowed a color camera for a day and did a one day of color programming, and then they renewed the contract. But that time we were with Rossmore Electric. So by then they were getting contracts with, they were running the cable system as well as operating Channel 6 at that time. So then we went color, and I think we're on our 4th or 5th series of color cameras over there now at the studio. So
No, I think the first camera, the black and white, they were huge. They were, remember, really enormous.
Yeah.
And they had the disc on the front for zooming in.
turret lenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
It had like 3 lenses.
Yeah.
And
We know about turret lenses, don't we, George?
Yeah, yes. Well, I kind of like the Rob Merritt's description of what Channel 6 was like back in those days. He called it the mash of television stations.
sort of the basics that you need to do programming. We went from having no tape recorders. We used to do everything live. This is even before you got there, Carolyn. And when you first started, we were doing everything live in the afternoon. And then we started taping programs. And we actually had a Golden Rain member who didn't think Channel 6 was worth anything, so he wanted us to go away. And he got a buddy of his on the Golden Rain board, and his job was to get rid of Channel 6. And one of his biggest complaints about us was the fact that, well, you guys play back all these tapes. And we said, well, yeah, but we've gone to the work and the trouble to produce the program. Why not show it a couple of 3 times and get some other viewers besides just the ones that watched it the first time? And he just couldn't wrap his head around that concept. He goes, well, down in Palm Springs where I used to live, everything was live, and we never, and I said, well, take it up with the board. I mean,
As I recall, at that time, at least when I started, I don't think you had the remote ability to do anything, because we were not taping board meetings. We used to go in there with pen and pencil.
well, yeah, history, when the community first started, the board meetings were closed, not only to the media, but to the residents. So only the board members and staff were in there. And then there was a state law that changed that said you had to let the public into your homeowner association meetings. So we could go in and take notes for a while.
Right.
And then they started doing the press conference thing, and that got
In the general manager's office.
creative. We had a gentleman, from this other newspaper over to the west of us, and he was writing articles that was, shall we say, somewhat critical of the
Just a
community and somewhat critical of PCM. And so they were saying, well, he didn't say that. The Golden Rain guy didn't say that. So this guy brings in his tape recorder. And they go, well, he doesn't want to be recorded. So the standoff was, well, Myra takes notes and Rob takes notes. I want to use the tape recorder to take notes. No, he doesn't want to be recorded. So that was, then they opened the meeting up to the public and we could go to the meetings and it was all
I
over.
also sort of remember that the first time you broadcast from outside the building was one of our parades.
Actually, before that, when the first big donation came in for Saddleback Hospital, I want to say 70, George, was the Mr. X dinner. And they actually ran cable across the parking lot. They built a little ramp so cars could go over the cable. And we went live from Clubhouse 1 with one camera for the dinner. And that was the first big donation for Saddleback Hospital.
That's right.
And there's a whole story behind that, which we don't have time for. But
There
it
was
was-
another time when we went live, and I can't.
Well, I remember the parade.
well, the parades
The
we did live.
parade, yeah.
We did
Yeah.
the 20th. We did
That's
the
right.
10th.
That's
the
right.
20th.
The 10th?
When you had,
We
Well,
did-
before that.
well, you
We
had
did the
the
10th,
big
we did the
platform.
25th, we did the 20th and the 25th.
Yeah.
But before that, we went live when there was, coincidentally, two fires, one in the Los Angeles area and one was in the San Diego area. And we were able to go up to what is now Gate 5, or not Gate 5.
Gate 14.
Gate 14,
Yeah.
where the head end was. We dragged our cameras up there, and we were able to hook up into the head end system and then go live from that location and keep the people abreast as to what was going on with both fires. Because in Los Angeles and the San Diego stations, they were paying attention to their own respective fires. But in the meantime, people were getting rather concerned because the smoke was coming our way. They really didn't know where the proximity of the fire was as it pertains to the community itself. And so we were able to keep the people abreast of what was going on at that time.
And then, of course, the one that we did a lot of coverage on was the Laguna Beach fire. And in fact, if you go down there and visit the little center they have down there, the little interpretive center down there, they're actually showing some of your footage. It's still showing on a projector down there, I think, and some of the slides you took as well. And that was interesting because we had a few residents who couldn't figure out why George couldn't get our helicopter in the air to give the residents of Leisure World live helicopter footage of the fire. And what kind of a TV station were we that we couldn't go live from the air and show where we were? So we had to try to explain to them that the budget wasn't going to allow us to quite do that little act. But then when did you start? Now, the paper was already established when you came because we had, and like the studio was kind of started by Cortese, so was the paper. Vera Howdeshell, I think was her name, published the paper for Cortese. And then they sold it to the advertising department, and then to Carlton Smith, and then to the Register, and
Right,
you were
so
in,
forth and so
yeah.
on. And we were in the little office that I think had been a sales office because there was a one-way mirror right by our desk. And you could see out but not in.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it was a one-way mirror. And,
They'd sit there and make faces outside everybody.
remember the mirror? Yeah. So you know that was kind of fun. We were right next to the studios. We
Yeah,
were able to
yeah.
run in the back door.
Well, and then the studio, I remember when they were, one of the 15 times they rebuilt that building before they got us out of there, for some reason they had to use the back of our studio. If you were in the old Channel 6 studio, the set, the blue set, some of the tape out there shows it, there was actually about a 5-foot walkway behind that and there was a door. Well, that became the only way to get from part A to part B of the building because they were redoing security. And I remember Tanya was hosting a show, the PCM's program, and the at that time general manager or the community relations director would stand behind the set and either spray things over at them or throw things over at them right during a live show. And we even had a gentleman who most recently sold PCM come out with a broom, walk in front of the cameras and start sweeping the floor right during a live, which is hard to maintain your composure when your boss is out there sweeping up in front of you. So, and we had lights fall on people, and people walk through the control room. And we used to have our film camera. We'd show a movie every week, and it was film, not DVDs like today. So film shooting across the room to a camera over here, and this resident came through the control room, and she stopped right in the middle. George goes, Enid! And she stopped and froze right between the projector and the camera. And so there's the movie on her stomach, you know. So we had to get her out of the way. But I want to say we started out with 2 color cameras, then we went to 3. We ended up with 3, right, Carolyn? By the time you left?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you went to, as soon as I left, you got all new equipment. I remember that.
I don't know if there was a message.
I don't know either, yeah. And we seem to buy a lot of Sony equipment over there. We seem to have almost everything over there now. Most of the newer stuff is Sony equipment. So, yeah.
I'm no technician, but our first color cameras were actually black and white RCAs that had a diacrylic filter that generated the
sort of color.
Yes.
Sort of color, yeah. And like we said, we used to do all our shows live in the afternoon. And then we had one tape recorder at first, a 1-inch black and white recorder that we had with the Cablecasters guys. And then we had a 1/4-inch color. We had 1-inch color that were rebranded RCAs. They were something else. JVCs rebranded as RCAs. And then we went to VHS for a while. We had VHS. We actually had a home type VHS with a tuner in it that we used. And then they've gone into, high 8, and now everything's DVDs or DV cam is what they're using today for everything over there. But it's been interesting to see. And of course, the building that studio's in now was actually that office building that the community purchased in lieu of building a new administration building. And so they were able to design curved walls and hang lights and a high ceiling. And we actually needed ladders, George. You and I used to be able to just light by reaching up and turning the lights. We had a very low ceiling in the other building, so yeah.
It was interesting, though, in relation to the sets, etc. We were able to, from time to time, replicate what was done on NBC's Today Show, where they used to have a studio next to the sidewalk, wherever they were located in New York. Yep. And you could see the people crowding around the window. Well, we used the back window that overlooked the parking lot of Clubhouse number 1 as a background from time to time. And it brings to mind an interview show. I forget who the personalities were at the time that were being interviewed, but it was some sort of a serious topic. And it seems as though the cameramen couldn't hold their composure and they started giggling. And when the program ended, the talent stood up and complained about the cameramen giggling and becoming rather disruptive in relation to their activities there behind the cameras. And then we had to explain to them, we're using as a background an open window that looks down the parking lot of Clubhouse 1. And it so happens during the middle of their show, 2 people come out of the pool area and go to their respective cars, which happen to be back to back to one another. And you could see the exhaust come out at the same time as though it was timed. And they both came out and collided, then got out of their cars and became very animated as to their take on what was really responsible for that wreck. But so it was rather hard for us to maintain our composure.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, another bad thing about the studio was it had the back door of the control room opened up on a back door to Clubhouse 1's parking lot. So people didn't seem to have any problem just opening up that back door and walking right into the control room was bad enough, but if they made a left-hand turn, they walked right into the studio. And I remember on the air interviewing somebody for some important thing, and this voice goes, is this the Leisure World Library? Go out the door, So we had a lot of that going on as well. It was hard to be, and then the other interesting about that control room was the day that it rained, and everybody was late coming into work. Paul was late, you were late, I forget who else was supposed to be there that day. So it was time to go on the air, So I put myself on the air in the control room. I put a camera in the doorway on me, put a camera on the guest, who was the Golden Rain president, who fortunately had enough composure when I said, here's what we're going to do. So I came up live in the control room, did the opening, did the break, came back, and I said, now here's our first guest, Peggy Kermer, your Golden Rain president. Went to her camera. She did her little report. She said, thank you, Rob, back to you. And I'm talking in the control room. And all of a sudden, the back door opens, and here's George. And he's looking at me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then he finally figured out what I was doing and came around, and we went back on the air. So that was rather unusual.
The joys of live TV. As a matter of fact, two of the people who were here, that were directors at the time, created quite a stir when we were covering an election, if you remember. And we left the back door open because that led out to the hall that went to your office. And we were waiting for the returns of the election that was a very profound election for this community.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to wait for the numbers to come in, because from echoing down the hall were shrieks and howls and great cheers as the city of Laguna Woods was declared.
Yeah.
And it was Bob Ring and Bert Hack that were down there voicing their opinions.
Well, and it was interesting because the voting, of course, it was all done within the community of the village
right.
here. So
The counting was in
the ballot,
boardroom.
the ballot boxes were coming into the administration building to be counted. And I remember, you know, A doesn't tell B sometimes, and whoever was changing shifts in Leisure World Security didn't tell the new guy coming on, by the way, there's people coming in with ballot boxes. And here's this guy with his ballot box banging against the glass door out there, trying to get in. The security guard's going like this. He goes, unless you have an ID card, you know. And the guy goes, these are, you know. So finally somebody had to intervene and say, this guy gets to come in, and they count the ballots. And where's Bob? It was pretty close. It was a pretty close election. 300 votes, so yeah. And obviously the rest is history now with Laguna Woods being a very successful city, so.
That was one of the few times when you were on the air late.
Yeah, we were. We were on the air late to cover that. That was
But
very
you
interesting.
Also, I remember one time during the El Nino storms, did you come in on a weekend?
Where's Paul? Yeah, Paul and I both did. I came in once, and I came in twice, and Paul came in once. And it was interesting because it was raining so hard as I'm going south on the freeway from Irvine. Cars going north were already starting to float on the other side of the freeway. And one of the people I called on the phone was a guy who was with the information department of the fire department. I got a hold of him, and he lived here in South County. And he said he just got to the office in Santa Ana. He had to stop and rescue people whose cars were floating on the freeway. He had to literally help them get out of their cars and get off the freeway. So it was raining that hard. And then it stopped and dried up, and went home, and Peter and I sandbagged the garage, and it rained again. And then the next weekend Paul came down, and then the third time I came down. So we were, yeah.
Yeah, that was our
That was interesting. That again was in the old building as well, so yeah. The building was interesting. Every year we got a letter from PCM telling us that you're breathing asbestos. That was always reassuring to put in your doctor's file.
No, well, I had a Leisure World gentleman who was absolutely convinced that the wall right next to my chair, right next to my desk, was asbestos. And he used to come in with a Geiger counter and test every year, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know, you mentioned those parades, and Carolyn, I know we had to do quite a bit of, shall we say, cable creativity to do those parades live, because we had to run, I think, 3 or 4 cameras out from the studio out to the street. And one year we got PCM to lend us one of those cherry pickers. So we had a guy up there, a guy with strong kidneys. I think he was the youngest guy. Put him up there, the cherry picker. And then we had, at one of the parades, I want to say it was the 25th, this really cool red Cadillac parade car stops. And Russ Disbrow gets out. And he comes over and starts doing parade commentary. So some of you who know Russ can imagine what that would have been like. But we had the Marine Corps band and all the county supervisors and all that kind of stuff. Those were a lot of work, those parades, but they were fun.
They were fun.
Because they were on a Saturday morning, so. Yeah, I remember the last one we did, I was so anxious to get down there. I dressed in the dark, and I got to work, and I noticed I had a different left and a different right shoe on. I'm going like, oh, that's interesting. So how excited was I to get down here for the parade? So those were fun. But we got Dale Evans one year. We got the Wells Fargo Stagecoach one year. We got the Beverly Hillbillies.
And who was
Truck.
that personality, radio personality that we had down here for one of the,
Well, we did. We had a lot of dealing with home savings. This is the old home savings, not the new home savings. So we had a lot of advertising. I want to say Harry Von Zell, and we had some of those guys. Chuck Purnell was the guy we worked with, was the PR guy. We did it when they opened their new building. We had 2 weeks of some of the old radio people on the air, and that was kind of fun as well. So yeah, I'm getting a 2-minute sign. Carolyn, what are you doing today? What are you doing these days?
Well, not much. Today I'm just still along with the Laguna Canyon Foundation, and that's about it right now.
George, you're still flying?
Still flying. I have an aerial photography business that I've been working with since 1977, as a matter of fact.
In fact, there's a picture out there of George and I in our misspent youth when he was learning to fly and I'm shooting film of it. It was a great piece of film. He said, oh, come out, I'm doing my touch and goes. Come film me doing my touch and goes. So touch and go is where your wheels touch down, then you take back off again. It's basically practice landing. So this was one of those cameras you wind up with a spring motor. So I'm getting George and he's coming in. He just perfect touchdown, and the camera goes click, and George stepped on the brake, and the plane went like this and spun on the grass, and so we missed that great
Yeah, that's right.
that great shot.
But the people in the tower, they were highly amused.
I'm sure they were. Yeah, I'm sure they were highly amused indeed. And Myra, we know you're still doing some writing, including something for the Historical Society.
yeah, and working for the Orange County Library system. So
Yeah.
keeping busy. Everybody here told me that retirement would keep you busy, and
Yeah.
I didn't believe them. I thought
Yeah,
it was all
yeah.
a lot of nonsense. And I've discovered that, hey, it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I'm the newbie. I've only been retired a month, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. But
Yeah, what are you going to
my
be doing?
biggest
You gonna be
challenge
traveling?
right now is training our little dog not to wake me up at 4 in the morning. And so far, he's learning how to do that. I don't know. We hope to do some traveling. Our kids are in the area, 2 of them at least, and we go to Colorado and visit these 2 every once in a while, and maybe get a chance to go to China with Chris's new project over there. So
Oh, that would be nice.
that'll be interesting. Yeah. So, well, we want to thank everybody for coming. This has been fun, and just good to see you all again.
Enjoy your retirement.
Now what?
Well, I hesitate to say anything because Paul said the mics were live.
Paul said don't say anything.
Rob,
Yes.
well, I just wanted to say a couple things here from some of the families that we have here. One of our families, you're the patriarch of, down front. That's a pretty nice family to be part of. You should be proud of that. 2 other families that we have here. One is our family of PCM and Laguna Woods Village that Rob has been known for many years to be a part of, 44 to be exact. And all of our advertisers that are here actually are part of our family as well. One of the things that has happened over the course of the past 9 years or almost 10 years that I've been here is that Rob has made all of our business people a part of our family. So the people that live in this community buy stuff, they attend, they eat food, they stay places, and some of our advertisers are people that are part of his family as well, and he's kept them here pretty well. And last but not least is our family at TV6, Russ, Paul, Mark, Ken on cameras, Ken, the rest of the people back at the studio, Jerry, and a lot of the people at PCM. We appreciate all you've done for us. News anchor of the decade from Team Viper, Rob Merritt.
Oh, Team Viper. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Need a third hand. This is really nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Ring, back to you.
We're going to make the 1:30. I'd like first to thank everybody who helped make today possible. I appreciate it. I could use a lot of time and give all the names, but what I'd rather do, Rob, is present you with the plaque that you've already seen. To Rob Merritt, in grateful appreciation of your many years of leadership and dedication to Laguna Woods Village, Television Channel 6, June 15th, 1969 to December 28th, 2012. Rob, thank you.
Thank you very much. This, by the way, is the real deal, George. You'll recognize this. This is our old booth mic that we used to actually use in the old studio. And if you've seen the picture out there of a little boy in a control room talking to this microphone, that's Christopher right here. So, in his youth years. So this is very special. It's a lot shinier than I remember it. You guys must have taken a little Armor All or McGuire's car polish or something to it there. It looks really, really good. Thank you very much. That's really cool.
And thank all of you for coming and participating in this event. Thank you again.
You know, sometimes old stuff, this still works, I think, if we had it hooked up. I think if it was wired up, it would still work.
Hope I didn't step on your toes.
No, it's okay. We'll miss you. We'll miss you. As you can see, I rather subtly took over and
No, that was fine.
ran with it. That was
But
fine.
I needed something to eat in there. Okay, George, I'll let you take it off.